My name is Cameron Salerno. I'm currently a sports journalist at the Sacramento Bee. I've been a journalist covering sports in the Sacramento area for 7 years. I started when I was 15 and a half at the Roseville Press Tribune and worked my way up to the Sacramento Bee. I primarily cover high school sports in the Sacramento area, but I've also dipped myself into covering the San Francisco 49ers, Sac Republic FC, and this fall slash winter, I'll be helping out with Sacramento Kings coverage. I'm really excited. I love this area. I love covering recruiting, love covering the local stories of athletes in this area. I think this area is super rich with talent, and it just is really exciting to have sports back in the area after not having it last year because of COVID. I mean, I started off as an intern at the Roseville Press Room when I was 15 and a half. I was lucky enough to get an opportunity by Stephen Wilson, who is one of my good friends today still, and I was in his wedding over the summer. And so he gave me my first shot of getting into this industry. And so I used that as a platform for 2 years to get my foot in the door and also cover local teams in the area like Wood Creek, Granite Bay, and other schools in the Sierra Foothill League. But like you mentioned before, I branched myself out 2 years ago to covering schools in the Sacramento area, such as like Elk Grove and Sheldon, because Sheldon basketball is really good. And that's really when I started getting into covering sports in the area was basketball season when Sheldon was making their state championship run. And so that's where I really got started. And obviously, social media is a great platform, and that's how I connected with a lot of people around in California and across the country. So I think it's it's a great platform to connect with people. Well, biasly, my favorite moment of my career so far was covering the NFC Championship game, San Francisco 49ers versus Green Bay Packers. I grew up watching the 49ers during the Smith and Kaepernick era in the early 2000s, or 2010s, rather. And so it was just awesome to see and experience that. I got to go in the locker room when they're celebrating. And so that was just awesome to see them celebrating this win the NFC Championship game. I don't think I'll ever forget that moment. I mean, it's better than them saying we hate Cameron. So I think that's something that I really appreciate. It's definitely, I'm honored that people love me that much to recognize me in that way. And obviously that's something that I think any reporter hopes and dreams of, that they're acknowledged and they're loved by the people they cover. And obviously we don't have the chance to write all those good stories sometimes. So it's good when we get good recognition for the stories we write. I just think covering student sections it's all part of the high school experience. You go to school, you play a sport, you're part of the student section, you're part of clubs. And so I had a really good high school experience growing up. And so I know what a good student section entails. I know what a good high school experience looks like. And so, obviously I'm not far removed from high school, which is, I think, a good thing and also a bad thing. I'm glad I moved on in that chapter of my life, but it's also cool to recognize and still cover because I appreciate having a good student section, also having good school spirit as well. It's covering the stories that maybe you don't want to cover, or also the stories that are hard and impact you. There's stories I've covered that are sad personally, and you see the emotion of the people you talk to, and you see how that makes them feel, and obviously you feel bad for them also, and it's really unique. And I think the positive how I come out of it is I get to tell their story. I get to say how they're doing, how it's really changed their life and impacted them in a positive way, and how they use this negative to create a positive. And I actually just tweeted that yesterday, that you have to make positive out of negative. And I'll tell a story that I haven't told anyone yet, because it happened yesterday. So I've been covering the San Francisco 49ers this season for Sacramento Bee, helping out our main guy, Chris Biederman. He does amazing work. So I drove to Santa Clara. Obviously, that's 2.5 hours. It's a long drive. And obviously, I enjoy covering the 49ers. I enjoy the experience of going in the press box. But when I got there, I parked, I went up to the media will call, and they didn't have my pass. And so I was confused. I was concerned, obviously. And so I called my boss, and he told me that he forgot to put in my pass request. And so I was in a bad spot, and I tried to contact the communications people with the 49ers because they denied people's requests earlier in the day. They could not accommodate myself. So I was stuck, and I didn't know what to do. I consider myself someone who is strong-willed and has someone I can handle stuff like that pretty good, but almost I was at the point of almost tears because I was just so frustrated. And obviously, it was a situation I couldn't control, and obviously something I really learned from. But I used it as a positive. I went out and talked to fans, and I created a story, and then I went on StubHub and bought the cheapest ticket possible and sat in the stands like a normal fan. So, I mean, I obviously it couldn't have turned into a really bad day, but I try to make the most out of it. And obviously, it's something that I learned from because you have to be professional sometimes, and not everything's going to go your way in life. And I think that's how that applies in journalism and also life as well. I learned how to be professional. Really, it's life is crazy, and life isn't always going to throw you a curveball. And so I could have handled that a lot of different ways. And I'm thankful for Joe Davidson, who I've worked with at Sacramento Bee. I called him. I said I just need an event. Like I was frustrated. That's why I was on literally the verge of tears almost because I was just so upset at what happened. I was not upset at anyone. I was just upset at the situation. How could I drive 2.5 hours, pretty much spend my entire Sunday? Because I just wanted to leave. At that point I was like, this sucks. Like I'm feeling down. And I was texting a few people who I know personally, like my girlfriend, my mom, and Steven, who's my old boss, and Joe, and my boss at the Sacramento Bee. And so, I mean, they felt bad, and they all would try to help me. And I was kind of not bad in sport, I guess, but I was just in a headspace where I didn't want to talk to anybody, and I was pretty upset. But I used it as a positive because Joe told me, "Hey, make a story out of it. You're already there." And at first I said, "No, I'm not going to do that." Like, I just want to feel bad for myself. I want everyone to feel bad for me. But at some point, it kind of clicked. It like in my head, I was like, I need to be professional. Like stuff like this is going to happen all the time. Like not this moment. I hope that never happens again because it was obviously very bad. But stuff like that's going to happen in life, and you have to just learn how to handle adversity. So that's what I learned the most out of it. I learned how to handle the adversity. I talked to fans. I went and talked at tailgates, and I wrote a story out of it. And I went to the game, and I sat in traffic for 3 hours like a normal person. And I think it made me appreciate also too, just like being alone and just like I've covered 10 games at Levi's Stadium with the 49ers. I've never walked around that stadium. And so it was cool to just walk around and just see the people, see the fans, see the food, the concession stands. And so I think it was just really cool. I obviously wish that never happened, but everything happens for a reason in life. So I think we all have to work together. I mean, we all have different stories. We all have different goals. I mean, my goals and our goals at the B are different than those of at ABC 10, KCRA 3, and the other local news stations and other papers. At the end of the day, we're all trying to accomplish the same somewhat goal, tell stories and promote local athletes. Obviously, people like their job more than others, and I'm in a position where I love my job. I love what I do. And I don't think some people can't say the same, which is okay. And that happens. I mean, some days I hate the job just because I want to take a break and I feel overwhelmed. But I think we can all just work together to promote good stories because we all work together. I mean, I've gotten to know a lot of the people in the Sacramento area who are reporters and people have left over the years. But for the most part, I know most of the area reporters. So they're pretty friendly and we get along. I mean, we obviously have that competition with one another. But at the same time, like I said, we have the common goal of we want to produce good content. Okay, so technically I wasn't reporting, but I got to see Jake Browning's first high school football game in 2012. I was a student at local middle school, and I decided to go to the Wood Creek game. I was with some of my friends I was in sixth grade. Browning threw for 10 touchdowns, 700 yards. So he's up there. Mount Rushmore for me, I think I would go Jake Browning. I got to see Jonah Williams play left tackle for the Bengals. He played at Alabama. Joe Nagata is another big one. He played at Clemson. Yeah, he's one of the best receivers I've ever seen. This is tough. I mean, put me on the spot. I really he wasn't considered a big recruit, but Cameron Scatabo from Rio Linda High School, one of the best high school football players I've ever seen play. He's killing it at Sac State right now. If we're just talking football, Isaiah Rutherford, another really good guy, committed Notre Dame out of high school. and now he's at University of Arizona. You have Latu, who retired. He was at Washington. I'm probably gonna name 30 guys because I've covered most of the 2019 guys. Nagata was in that 2019 class. Then 2020 have his younger brother Daniel Nagata, who's a running back at Arizona State. Elijah Badger, who's a wide receiver at Arizona State. Who else? Omar Nomar Lott. He played at Grant. He's now at Arizona State, a defensive end. I feel like I'm forgetting some people. Ian Book, I saw him play in high school, so that was really, really cool. Baseball, man, Daniel Suzak is probably the best high school baseball player I've seen come out of the area. He's going to be a first-round pick. Malcolm Moore is another guy who is coming to Stanford. He's a senior at McClatchy. He's going to be probably a first-round pick this spring. Softball, the McFarland twins from Whitney, they're really good. They're our B Players of the Year. TJ Nichols at Oakmont, who's a baseball player. He was also our B Player of the Year. Who else? Basketball. Best basketball players I've seen play. I think if I have my starting five, I'd go Marcus Bagley from Sheldon, now Arizona State. Jordan Brown, good friend of mine. Grew up together in high school. He went to Nevada, then Arizona, now at Louisiana Lafayette. And I would go Jordan Ford, who's in the G League, played at Folsom. Noah Blackwell guy I grew up watching. He was a Wood Creek guy. I would go Ty Roberts because that's another guy I grew up with. He's great. He's at Washington State right now. Issa Silva, he's a true freshman at Stanford. He was a great recruit to come out of this area. Probably one of the best basketball players I've seen play. From a viral standpoint, I think he was one of the players that when you watched him play, he had a chance to make a viral play every single time he stepped onto the court. Yeah, I'll start by saying I know this is kind of out of Placer County, but Rico Flores from Folsom is one of the best wide receivers I've ever seen, and he's only a junior, so he's definitely, he has offers from Alabama, LSU, Texas. Walker Lyons is another guy who's going to wow some people. He's a tight end at Folsom, and Rico Flores I mentioned already, but Carlos Wilson, Intercom, he's another 4-star guy. So those are probably the best football players we have coming up. Basketball, I think we talked about earlier, Harper Peterson. I'm wowed by her. She's amazing. The way that she can handle the ball at her size, at her age, is incredible. She's going to be a really special player to watch. Saw her play against Oak Ridge during the spring, so I was really impressed with her. Softball, and we have so much softball and baseball town. I've always said Sacramento is a baseball town. I know we have the River Cats, but this is a baseball town. We have Torrin O'Haron at Rockland, who's committed to Stanford. Malcolm Moore, like I mentioned, he's also committed to Stanford, but he could get drafted. So this area has so much talent. I could probably talk to you guys for probably 5 hours about local guys or girls who could just be special and make it to the next level. And I'm probably missing like 100 more. To go back to your question about the best athletes I've seen play. Jake Brown, I think, would probably be the best high school football player I've seen play personally, just because, he had the great career at Folsom. Then he went on to Washington. Now he's on practice squad. You got to see Cam Smith from Granite Bay. I think he played at USC for all 4 years. He was a team captain. I know he had a huge breakup game against Utah. I think he was a sophomore year. He had 3 interceptions. He made it to the NFL, and then he just retired this past offseason due to a heart condition, I believe. If I pull up the top recruits in 2018, that was like Spencer Webb and Isaiah Crocker, who are both at University of Oregon. 2017, let's see. You have DJ Johnson, who started off at the University of Miami. I think he was committed there at high school. He's another guy that's at Oregon. So I think a lot of Oregon guys it's kind of a theme. In 2018, Oregon was getting a lot of the local commits from the Sacramento area. Then in 2020, Arizona State got 3 of the best. And so 2021 and 22, the recruiting has kind of slowed down due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But I think probably by next year, it's going to pick up again, just because teams will have more scholarships available. But yeah, this is a great area. And like I said, I mentioned Cameron Scadabo earlier. he was a guy who had no offers out of high school. He had one. It was Sacramento State, and another one that was a lower level. I think it was a Division II school. But Sacramento State really liked him as a player, and you don't have to be a big recruit to make him big time. And he's showed just why. I mean, he has played as pretty much a redshirt freshman because he didn't play last year because of COVID season. Sacramento State didn't have a football season. I mean, he's stepped up and he started the last 3 games and had 100 yards in back-to-back games and had 98 this past weekend. And so you don't have to have 4 stars or 5 stars to make it on and play the next level and succeed. So if anyone's watching, or if any high school player is watching, you don't have to be a big-time recruit to play at the next level.
Definitely.
I think high school players have had the biggest impact from the COVID-19 pandemic as far as recruiting goes, just because colleges can offer the guys who they have already another year of eligibility because of the COVID season last year. And so that guarantees their roster spot. And so what about the other guys who are coming out of high school who are trying to get a scholarship? Well, those numbers are impacted because of the guys who are already there. And so I think that's why recruiting has been impacted the most. So I would say high school players have been affected the most by the COVID-19 pandemic. And I don't really know when it's going to end, because obviously guys are going to leave, guys are going to enter the transfer portal. And so I can really see maybe by next year it'll mellow out a little bit and teams will be able to recruit more players. But some schools are only taking 10 to 15 guys where normally they would take probably 25, 30. And I talked to Troy Taylor at Sacramento State, talked to Dan Hawkins at UC Davis, talked to Brandon Huffman, who's the national 247 recruiting analyst. And they gave me great answers, because a guy like Dan Hawkins, he said he's all for the transfer portal. He said, I think it's a good thing for college football. And then Troy Taylor had the mindset of you have to adapt or die. So he has adapted, and he said that they love recruiting high school kids still because they want to develop these kids. But obviously, Sacramento State has gotten guys through the portal, same with UCD. But going back to your point, I think it's a good opportunity for players because we never know what's going to happen, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic. Most guys didn't even get to take official visits at the school they wanted to go to. So they're going in blind. They don't know these coaches face-to-face. They've only had Zoom interactions with them or text messages with them. And so I think it's a good thing for college football to have the portal. Obviously, people might have different thoughts on it, and that's okay. It's their opinion. But I think ultimately it's a good thing for college football, because we shouldn't be punishing guys who make decisions at 16, 17 years old that they should have to stay at a 4-year school just because their coach that recruited them said they should. Because if coaches can leave free willingly without a drop of the hat, why can't players? So I think that's a mindset I have.
See that.
I mean, it's incredible what West Park did. I know people say, oh, they played in the worst league in the Sacramento area. I mean, to only have sophomores and juniors and still win the league, incredible. I mean, they lost the first 4 games of the season. It was easy to put aside this season and say, hey, this is a rebuilding year. We don't need to – we're looking ahead for the future. And when I talked to Jason Tenner, who's the West Park coach, he told me a lot of people said to him that the future is, for most people, it's the next few years. Well, he told me the future's now. And they won their league. They lost the first game to Placer. But, I mean, it's a huge building block for that program. And obviously someone who's grown up in West Roseville has seen that school develop and come about. The facilities are amazing. I mean, you look at the facilities, it's mind-boggling. I wish I had those facilities when I was in high school, because if I was a high schooler and I had the choice to go to West Park or any other school, I'd pick West Park in a heartbeat just because of the facilities. They're amazing. And I think the same can be said about 12 Bridges, the new high school. I think they're planning on building a new school in Folsom in the near future, but I'm not sure exactly when, probably on the other side of Highway 50. But at the same time, I mean, the schools are going to develop, and it's hard to build a culture. It's hard to build that winning establishment over time. It's going to become a day where West Park is going to be a powerhouse, I really think. I would not doubt it. They have the facilities. They have athletes coming in. They have people obviously moving in to West Roseville from the Bay Area and other cities around Sacramento. So don't be surprised if West Park turns into the powerhouse in 5 to 10 years. So I would not be surprised at all. Probably the Olympics, just because of the different sports and how it's the best in the world at every position, or not every sport per se. And so I just think that would be an amazing experience. I know it's in LA in 2028, so that's obviously a goal of mine. I think the Super Bowl would probably be second just because, I mean, it's the Super Bowl. I think everybody would love to go to the Super Bowl in their lifetime. So, I mean, I think it'd probably be Olympics first, then Super Bowl close second.